My girlfriend forced me to seduce her white and light fiancé under threat of death. 7 years ago. She was hurt by the white moonlight. I held her in the palm of my hand, accompanied her to open a private detective agency to realize her dream, and finally helped her out of the love wound. 7 years later. Her white moonlight is back. Also proposed to us commission. Want to make his fiancé fall in love with him. His girlfriend smiled at him with pain. Falling in love with you is easier than breathing. Leave it to me. I'll let Andre seduce her and then hurt her hard. When she realizes that you are the best man in the world, she will definitely fall in love with you. I coldly watched my girlfriend sacrifice me for love without hesitation. Oh, then I can go. I hope she will never regret it later. Outside the wind and rain. My girlfriend Calliope pushed open the window and made a gesture to jump down from the 18th floor. She was crying her heart out. I only asked you to seduce Diego's fiancé. I didn't ask you to die. I am your girlfriend, I do not mind. You a man as far as so pretentious? If you don't say yes, I'll die for you right now. I hugged her thin body tightly, not caring that my arm was cut by the iron nail. But Calliope seemed to be determined to force me. If not for me stopping her, she really dared to jump down. In desperation, I almost squeezed out words from between my teeth. Okay. I promise you. You can come back now. Calliope finally relaxes, and I seize the moment to carry her back in one hand. But only as soon as she landed on the ground. Diego, her white moonlight who had been sitting and watching the action for half a day, greeted her. Calliope, are you all right? You scared me to death just now. So anxious that I knocked my hand on the cabinet. Calliope heard this and immediately broke away from me and ran to him with a worried face. To the non-existent wound. And she did not see at a glance. In order to save her. The whole left arm was scraped by the iron nail and drenched in blood. Diego suddenly gave me a provocative look and smiled, saying that Calliope is still as full of me as before. His provocation didn't hurt me at all. What really stung me was Calliope's instantly red face. It was Calliope's instant red face in her words. As long as you're happy, I'll do whatever you want. I've loved Calliope for 10 years. Since high school. But she was always in love with Diego, the popular guy who rode his motorcycle and fought everywhere. Diego lost a game of truth or dare with someone and agreed to be with Calliope. But 3 days later, he said he was tired of playing, and dumped her again. Calliope was so hurt that she committed suicide every day. And sometimes she took it out on me. Diego is so handsome when he fights. And he is also the young master of the Yi group. So look at you. You look like a dog. How can you compare with him? I was very sad. But as long as she said sorry to me pitifully afterward, I got rid of all my anger. People laughed at me for being a dog licker. But only I knew that I really loved Calliope. So much so that I wanted to hide her in my pocket, and keep her away from all the harm in the world. Calliope has said many times before that she wants to open a private detective agency. In order to help her get her act together, I really accompanied her to open one. It seemed like a very middle-of-the-road thing to do. But she put a lot of passion into it. At first we can only pick up the kind of cat looking for dogs. Up the tree, to pick up the feather handball small single. But we all take it seriously. Gradually. More and more customers. What to catch a mistress. Investigate a boss. And so on. More and more orders. Calliope finally out of the love injury. And her attitude towards me also gradually softened. Until Valentine's Day this year, she agreed to my confession. She also changed the name of our private detective agency to Seeking Mal. God knows. I was so happy at that time. It was the highlight of my life. But I didn't realize that the day after Calliope and I got together, Diego came back. He kicked over my customized sign and spit on it. What a piece of shit. I snapped at him and Fanny Lamb rushed out and said to me, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Be polite to Diego." Turning her head but smiling at Diego with a pleasing smile. She didn't notice that her foot was on the sign of Seeking Mal. That's when I realized that Calliope was still in love with Diego. But Diego wasn't what he used to be. And he was all disheveled. He said he suspected that his fiancé was cheating on him and wanted us to help him investigate. But Calliope's eyes were sad, and when he heard the word fiancé, Diego's business is my business. Don't worry. Leave it to me. She grabbed me and followed the fiancé day and night. But ironically, Diego's fiancé didn't show the slightest sign of cheating at all. As for her being indifferent to him, hot and cold, there can only be one reason. That is, she doesn't love him. Just like Calliope doesn't love me. Diego is even more disheveled. Calliope was full of heartache, completely disregarding the fact that she was still in front of me, and directly held his hand tightly. Calliope took over the second commission, to make Diego's fiancé fall in love with him. Calliope smiled at him through the pain. Falling in love with you is easier than breathing. Leave it to me. I'll get Andre to seduce her and hurt her. When she realizes that you are the best man in the world, she'll fall in love with you again. She even went so far as to force me to commit suicide. Calliope told Diego firmly. I wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice my life for you. Not to mention my boyfriend. I look at Calliope with a cold eye, and see her obsessive expression of willingness to sacrifice everything for love. With the cold water poured on me one after another, the hot love in my heart had already gradually cooled down, and her words completely shattered my attachment to her. I swept a glance at the table. Diego's fiancé's photo. That beautiful and soulful face. I was simply too familiar to be familiar with it. Oh, since you guys want me to go so much, then I can go. I hope you, Calliope, won't regret it later. Street garden. I hid by the wall with Calliope and Diego, peeking at the woman on the bench. Her eyebrows were soulful and her temperament was sly and soft. That's Diego's fiancée. Eugene of Zoo Group. Vanessa. Vanessa is holding a handful of breadcrumbs in her hand, smiling down as she feeds the pigeons. Suddenly, there came a group of evil men, which Calliope had arranged. She wanted me to be the hero, to fall from the sky and fight off the men when Vanessa was most afraid. That way I would be sure to get in Vanessa's good graces. Diego glares at me with eyes full of shady jealousy as Calliope speaks of the plan. Shameless mistress. I laughed so hard I didn't bother to pay attention to him. I turned my head and reminded Calliope one more time, if I really go, I won't have any pills for regrets. Calliope looked at Diego with a pained look on her face. Diego doesn't want to see you right now. So hurry up and get out of here. I looked at the person I've loved for so long with disappointment. I turned around and walked towards Vanessa. By this time Vanessa was surrounded by a couple of burly guys and was panicking. I fought them off in 3 tries. Then turned around and locked eyes with Vanessa. The moment she saw me, Vanessa's beautiful eyes lit up. You guy. You're finally willing to turn around and look for me? I glanced at Calliope and Diego, who were nervously peeping from afar, pulled Vanessa's hand, and walked towards the lake. In fact, I've known Vanessa for a long time. My family and Zoo's family are family friends. And she and I, we were childhood friends. Gaining her favor is not even a piece of cake for me. After confirming that they couldn't hear us, I confessed everything to Vanessa and advised her to be careful with Diego. That asshole is not a person worth committing to. It's best not to marry him, but to marry someone you like. Vanessa furrowed her beautiful eyebrows with a distressed expression. You think I want to marry him? It's not because my family forced me to marry him. Besides, it's not like my family is forcing me to marry him. Who let that marriage partner? Who has been my betrothed since I was a child? He has been with another girl and broke off the marriage contract with me in a big way. Saying that, she glared at me with an angry grunt. I instantly had a bit of weakness. Because the marriage partner who made a fuss and insisted on withdrawing from the marriage is me. But we don't like each other. I can't marry her. Vanessa's eyes suddenly crossed a few points of cunning. At the beginning of the family business at the expense of giving up to chase love. To the present. You still like that girl? I instantly fell into silence. When I mention Calliope again, my heart is no longer as passionate and fluttering as it once was. But after all, 10 years of liking is not something that can be forgotten in this moment. Forget it. Forget it. Let's not talk about these spoilers. Don't you want to get in my good graces? Then just play with me for a day. Vanessa suddenly took my hand tightly. We fed the pigeons together and went boating on the lake, blown by the breeze and looking at her smiling face. My heart gradually flowed freely. Calliope and Diego were briefly forgotten. Vanessa also sent me home. Before getting off the bus, she suddenly called out to me. Seeking Mal Private Detective Agency is quite famous now. I have heard so many people rave about you. I also have a commission that I would like to ask for your help. In my puzzled eyes, she said, I used to know a confident and talented teenager named Andre. But he disappeared after he met a girl in high school. Can you help me find him? I froze. I went back to seeking Mal and only just got through the door when an empty beer bottle hit me hard. Diego was drunk and glaring at me with scarlet eyes. Shit. That's my Fiang key. Why don't you go to hell? Calliope never tried to comfort him, but looked at me with red eyes. I saw you holding her hand. Andre, you're being mean. Aren't you? Do you still love me or not? I looked at these two ridiculous people calmly. For the first time, I felt out of place and normal. Vanessa's words rang in my ears again. Calliope has always been like this for the past 10 years. Calling me like a dog. Hot and cold. That heavenly child. And my love for her. That's how it's been. Slowly dying out. I looked straight at Calliope's red eyes, and felt that there was not even a trace of heartache in my heart. I knew that I was finally relieved. No more love. Break up. Snap. What answered me was a hard slap. Calliope sneered. Want to stimulate me with this? Want me to be jealous for you? I don't care about you. I don't care about you at all. But under her eyes, she couldn't hide her panic. In order to show that she doesn't care, she even calmly pulls us into a meeting to discuss the day's progress. I remembered that during the day, Vanessa told me in order for me to deliver, just tell them that the reason why I'm hot and cold towards Dago is because in my heart, there's a man I've been secretly in love with for 15 years. When she said this, she winked at me and smiled gently. I then said this as it was. Diego suddenly stormed out. Bitch. What a fucking bitch. Calliope surprisingly didn't pacify him, but looked straight at me. Then the next step is for you to help us figure out who that person really is. I knew that she was trying to test if I would still be like before. Like a dog. Centering on her and obeying her in everything. I was about to decisively refuse, saying that I won't seduce Vanessa anymore, when Diego, who was on the side, suddenly said in a shady manner, this kind of bitch. When I get my hands on her, I'll take her life sooner or later. I instantly clenched my fists, and felt an inexplicable anger in my heart. At that moment, only one thought was left in my mind. Never let Diego hurt Vanessa. Okay. I said. I promise. But Calliope seemed to mistake that I was doing this for her, and smiled with instant satisfaction. As she passed me, she told me with a smug look on her face, don't try me with these little tricks in the future. And I'll pretend I didn't hear what you just said about breaking up. I told Vanessa to be careful with Diego. But she didn't seem to listen, and smiled at me with her eyes bent. Come on. It's Sanabata. Why do you have to say something like that? She suddenly snapped her fingers. The lights in the whole restaurant dimmed. Big bouquets of roses were put out. And my favorite piano music was played. Vanessa gave me an angry look. I even prepared a surprise for you. Happy Eve. I was completely stunned. I suddenly realized that I used to be the one who went through all the trouble of preparing surprises for Calliope on various holidays. This seemed to be the first time that someone had prepared a surprise for me. I subconsciously glanced back at the two guys who were peeking not far away. Diego's eyes couldn't sit still, and Calliope was biting her lower lip. Panicking. Vanessa suddenly called out to me. The moment I turned around, that beautiful face zoomed in front of my eyes. She kissed me straight away. Calliope and Diego rushed up to me with eyes wide open. You two bitches and dead mistresses. You even got together. Do you think I'm dead? Bitch, who let you kiss him? That's my boyfriend. Vanessa was lying on my shoulder, looking at them lazily. Let him seduce me. Then dumped me hard. And then let Diego pretend to comfort me. Isn't that what you guys want? I've had a crush for 15 years on a guy who's confident and flamboyant and talented and 800 times better than Diego. Aren't you guys dying to know who he is? At that, Diego and Calliope immediately looked over nervously. Even I couldn't help but look back at her with a little curiosity. Vanessa breathlessly smacks me. I hate you for being a log. That guy. That's you. Now I'm completely stunned and can't believe my ears. Vanessa? Has had a crush on me for 15 years? Diego hated me so much that his eyes were covered with red blood. He swung his fist and rushed towards me. You idiot. Dared to steal my woman. I'll kill you. I then reacted and hurriedly pushed Vanessa aside. Calliope screamed out in fear. This time she surprisingly didn't help Diego but looked at me with a worried face and even tried to come up to pull the fight. Perhaps in her memory, Diego has always been known to be a good fighter, and has never lost a fight. But I wasn't afraid at all. Instead I moved my wrist and punched back. Andre, are you stupid? Why don't you run away? Don't fight with him. The words came to an abrupt end. Because Diego, who had won 100 battles, was knocked to the ground by one of my punches. Calliope didn't know that Diego looked so capable of fighting because his opponents were afraid of his family's power and influence and didn't dare to fight hard. But I am fearless now. The bad anger that had been held in my heart for 10 years was let out at this moment. Punch after punch. I beat Diego severely. He was lying on the ground gasping for air. How dare you hit me? Do you know who I am? I am the young master of the Yi family. You are dead. I looked at him expressionlessly. Calliope's eyes were wide open as she stood by the side, staring blankly at me. I suddenly remembered that in high school, when Diego fought with others, Calliope would always have a fangirl look on her face, watching and hollering from the side. The family is rich. The fights are still handsome. This who cannot like awe. Actually, my family is richer than Yi's. I'm even better at fighting than he is. But I never thought of taking these to win Calliope's favor. I always thought that only sincerity can be exchanged for sincerity. So I kept desperately loving Calliope, thinking that one day, she would see my sincerity and love me too. I stared at Diego. You were right about one thing. I was a douchebag. As I passed her, she suddenly grabbed my hand. Where are you going? You're coming home with me tonight. Or not. The words were hard. But her eyes trembled so much I knew that she was pleading with me. Trying to keep me. It's just that after so many years of calling out to me, she's not learned how to bow down and be soft with me. I broke off LYM's hands one by one. When I said I was breaking up before, it wasn't lust. I meant it. Calliope. I don't love you anymore. Calliope's face has completely lost its blood color, but still persistently blocked in front of me, refusing to let me go. Until Vanessa asked softly and said, after so many years of indifference to him, it is too late to make this appearance now. Don't you think it is too late? Andre doesn't like cilantro. Can't eat spicy food. But these are your favorite things. Enduring to eat with you for 10 years. And you just know to think about your good-for-nothing Diego. And didn't even notice it. Lim Mao wrong. You're pretending like shit now. Calliope looked like she had been poked through her last line of defense, instantly bursting into tears and dropping to the floor. And it was only then that I remembered that at that meal just now, surprisingly, there wasn't a single dish that I hated. A warm current welled up in my heart. Carefully taking care of Calliope for 10 years. Suddenly I can be taken care of by others like this. This kind of feeling is really too rare. Vanessa, she was too rare. I went back home. These years for Calliope. Not to mention the company at home. I even rarely go back home. Even across the new year to accompany her across. At the dinner table I realized that the original unconsciously. My parents saged so much. Hair began to gray. People dried up a lot. Eyes are a little cloudy. I took to mouthfuls of rice and hurriedly hid my tears of guilt. Then I raised my head and tried my best to make them happy. But the two old men were always cold and grunted. Deliberately not talking to me. In the end, it was Vanessa who helped me round up the scene. And only then did my old man shut his eyelids to look at me. You bastard. You still know how to go home? If it is not Vanessa, persuade us. Said you these years detective agency run a sound. Have in the business. Not all pounced on a girl. You think your old man will let you into this door? I hurriedly bowed my head sheepishly. After the meal, my mom secretly told me that Vanessa helped me to make a promise. She said that I have really collected myself this time. And will definitely study seriously to take care of the company in the future. So my dad reluctantly forgave me. My mom couldn't help but urge me with a meaningful look at me. If you are free one day, go to the hospital to see the eyesight. Until I left the house, I was still wondering what my mom meant by this. My eyesight is not bad, right? I can see 5.0 with my bare eyes. Vanessa glanced at me and couldn't help but laugh. I then remembered and hurriedly thanked her. Not only did she put in a good word for me with my parents, but there were many other things I had to thank her for before I walked her to the car. I couldn't help myself and asked, "Have you really always had a crush on me?" Vanessa paused for a moment and turned around to look me up and down. Now I choked. She spread a smile and suddenly mysteriously came to my ear. Remember that commission of mine, right? Find the past you well. And when the commission is completed someday, I'll tell you a shocking secret. Since that day, I entered my family's company, studying and working day and night. Vanessa said I am far worse than before. Then I have to prove to her that I am still the same as before. Sooner or later. I want to hear for myself what big secrets she can hide from me. Silently fighting with Vanessa, I almost forgot about Calliope and the past. Until I was awake, and in the middle of the night, by Calliope's phone call. She seemed to have been drinking and was talking in a loud tongue. I could barely make out that it was to ask me where I had put her dress away. I used to take such good care of her that she seemed particularly uncomfortable without me. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. And Calliope sobered up a bit. I'm sorry. I forgot. I thought it was the same as before. I didn't say anything. She asked again. Andre, can we go back to the old days? The old days? What a hell of a life I've had. My mind was so full of the big secret that I didn't bother to deal with Calliope and hung up. A second before hanging up, there seemed to be a sob coming from the other side of the receiver. It doesn't matter. It has nothing to do with me. Seeing Calliope again was at a business reception. She was attending as Diego's date. As soon as she saw me, she immediately stopped and her eyes were cast towards me intentionally or unintentionally. In all conscience, Calliope really looks good today. Wearing a moonlight white strapless gown dress and stepping on strappy heels. She looked tall and slender. But I didn't give her a second glance. Instead, I stretched my neck and looked around, looking for Vanessa's figure. She had a good temperament and was good looking, so she should look better in a gown. Right? Calliope went up to me to say hello, but was deadlocked in Diego's arms. Yo, isn't this my girlfriend's 10-year licking dog? A dog can now mix into this kind of high-end place? Come on. Let me toast to you. Kneel down and lick like you used to. Diego splashed the wind directly on the ground and laughed in a despicable way. Suddenly, he looked behind me. His eyes first stunned for a moment. Then his expression was instantly gloomy. Vanessa is here. She's so beautiful today. Wearing a silver slim-fitting dress skirt. With a slim, tall and exquisite figure. I couldn't help staring at her. And it wasn't until she naturally took my arm that I reacted to the fact that I was freezing. Diego sneered several times in a row. and suddenly copied the red wine bottle on the side. Then ruthlessly smashed at me. Snap! The crumbs of the wine bottle splattered. But it wasn't me who was smashed. I looked at the skinny figure that blocked in front of me. I couldn't talk about being touched in my heart. Only helplessness. Calliope had blood running down her forehead, but still stubbornly blocked in front of me. She backhanded Diego and slapped him with a single word. I am not your girlfriend. I was stupid before. In the future, I will never let you hurt Andre again. Diego looks at Calliope, who is in front of me, and at Vanessa, who is holding my arm, and suddenly storms out. Are you all blind? It's just a dog. How can it compare to my Yi family's young master? Believe it or not, I will make him disappear tomorrow. I looked at him expressionlessly. Vanessa, on the contrary, puffed and laughed. Then do you believe that he can make your entire Yi family disappear tomorrow? Saying that, she suddenly waved at a certain direction. Uncle Yi. This way. When that middle-aged man in a suit ran over in a panic. Diego was smug. It felt like he was going to take advantage of his dad's momentum and hit me hard in the face the next second. But in fact, his dad turned his head and slapped him hard. You unfilial son. Usually foul even if you do not look at who this is. You can offend? Diego saw his father pulling him hard to bow and apologized to me. All stunned, I kindly explained to him. My dad is the chairman of the Xiao group. Did not come out to say before. Because I think that is my parents fought for the kingdom. If I borrow them to bully others. Too shameless. Hearing that I was scolding him, Diego's face darkened. He was about to scold me when his dad kicked him in the knee socket. Straight away, Diego knelt in front of me. His dad said that he would do whatever he wanted to him as long as I could take the heat off of him. I laughed a little at Diego's trembling expression of fear. I smiled at Diego's trembling expression. If you want me to get over it, get out of the marriage with Vanessa. Vanessa and Diego's engagement has become a problem for me lately. Diego had little room to resist, and was held down by his father. Seeing him glaring at me with resentment, I flippantly added, and this glass of wine on the ground. Too wasteful. You yourself kneel and lick it clean. After I said that, I no longer look at him, holding Vanessa to go away. Calliope's stiff, sobbing voice seemed to come from behind. But Vanessa suddenly clutched my hand, accelerated and pulled me to the rest area. The lounge was dimly lit with the curtains drawn. Vanessa suddenly rubbed her chest, leaned in my arms. A tender look. Did you see that just now? Diego's eyes are so terrible. Scared me. I was speechless. This guy has been walking around since she was a kid. What else could she be afraid of? Just then, Calliope's voice suddenly sounded in the hallway. Andre, I saw you guys coming down here. What are you doing? Please. I was wrong before. Don't do this to me. Where are you? Come out of there. She shouted louder and louder as if she had brainstormed something. Even started rapping on the doors from lounge to lounge. And that's when Vanessa suddenly gave my shoulder a push. The soft body pressed against me so tightly that I could barely breathe. Suddenly, the sound and vibration of tapping resounded behind me. After a few taps and no movement, Calliope seems to be all but gone. But Vanessa suddenly bites my bottom lip so hard it feels like I'm seeing blood. And the taste of blood floods my mouth. The pain was too much to hold back for a moment. And I cried out. The footsteps outside the door went and came back, followed by the sound of Calliope's more frantic breakdown. She started banging on the door frantically. The door panel disliking my spine. Vanessa doesn't kiss me anymore. But she doesn't release me either. Instead, she gazes at me silently with a sly smile in her eyes. Her eyes are so bright in the dimness. The movement of the slamming door faded. Calliope's sobs resounded from outside the door. Andre, you come out. Please don't. Don't do this to me. Don't leave me. I love you And Vanessa suddenly came closer, giggled softly and asked me in an airy voice. This is a show I arranged for you to chase husband crematorium. How is it? Like it or not? Is it cool? When we left the hotel in the evening, we bumped into Diego and Calliope again. Or we could say that they were waiting for us on purpose. Diego glared at me sinisterly and made a neck-wiping gesture. And Calliope looked away from me with red eyes. Her right arm red and swollen with blood on her knuckles. Presumably from slamming the door earlier. I shake my head and turn away. Before she couldn't see my bloodied left arm from the injuries I'd inflicted to save her. Now I don't need to see her bloodied right arm either. After that day, I couldn't help but ask after Vanessa again. Am I as good as I used to be? Can you tell me the big secret now? And, does she still like me? But Vanessa smiled playfully and mysteriously. Not even close. Keep trying. I was both speechless and helpless. So I could only continue to bury my head in the sand. Just when I thought I was finally free of my past. I got another call from Calliope 8 one night. She was on a video call. And I could barely see Malseeker's window in the background on her end. A miserable wailing voice came through the listening brief. Andre, will you come back to see me? Otherwise, I'll jump right now. You know, I do what I say. I remembered countless days and nights in the past. Lynn Bittern's crazy look is something that I've learned before. Gritting my teeth and cursing, I still lifted the blanket and drove over. Through the familiar alley. Past the signalboard of the search ride. I hurriedly came all the way. I have envisioned countless worst-case scenarios in my head. What I didn't realize was that when I opened the door, it wasn't Calliope who greeted me. Instead, it was a smothering. With a sharp pain in my head, and a blackout before my eyes. I fainted. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself with my hands tied behind my back. And a Diego sorrowfully being sharpened. Andre, how does it feel to be betrayed by your own woman? Huh? And beside him, Calliope looked at me with red eyes and a guilty face. I realized what was going on. But there was nothing else to do at the moment but try to stay calm and look at Diego warily. You want to kill me? But in that case, you will also be arrested. It's not worth it for the young master of the Yi family to go to jail, just for the sake of a moment of anger. Right? Diego smiled smugly. Grabbing me by the collar, he forced me to kneel down in front of him. The dirty foot that had stepped on the muddy ground stepped directly on my head. I will not go to jail. Let me tell you. I have made a deal with the people. I kill you. They help me dispose of the body. Soon, you will be cut alive into a mess of rotten meat. And then thrown into the sea. To the outside world, people will only say that you are missing. I haven't been idle these days. Gathering information about your Shao group everywhere. After you die, I will find a way to do away with your parents as well. Swallow your family's business. And take your woman. And by then Calliope and Vanessa will all be mine. Also, the more he said, the more excited he became. And even began to laugh maniacally. It was as if the scene was already in front of me. Taking advantage of this, I suddenly and violently broke free from the ropes and knocked him down hard. Diego, however, laughed contemptuously. You don't think you can still escape, do you? A dozen big men came pouring into the house. I also laughed. Then you don't think I grabbed the knife to escape, right? Not really. I just wanted to pick up a weapon before they came. Pick up a weapon for defense first. Lest I be killed before I can be rescued. Who were they? Outside the factory, and I just feel ridiculous. Don't negotiate. It's faster to find someone to fight. I kindly reminded him that he was doomed to lose the moment he started gathering information about my family. He gave this matter to his subordinates. Of course, it is impossible to find out by himself. But chose to entrust. And the most famous private detective agency in town is us. Seeking Mala. Your so-called plan. In the first step. I already know. Calliope came to me the first time he received the commission. And I quickly surmised Diego's intentions and formulated a plan to kill him back. Mal faked a suicide to trick me into coming over. I complied only to bring Diego to justice. There were so many ways to deal with him if I succeeded in getting him jailed. After hearing what I said, Diego was in a rage. How dare you betray your old man? But suddenly, he giggled and laughed again. But Andre, you think you're all right here? Don't you realize that Calliope is missing? Calliope asked me for some men this morning. And guess what they're doing now? I froze. Called Vanessa. No answer. Called Calliope again. Ring after ring. Hello? I instantly sat up straight. Calliope. Where are you? I'm here to see you. Calliope seems to have the wind in her sails. She gave me an address. And I told her I'd be right there. She suddenly laughed. If I said, Vanessa is not with me, you will also come? What do you mean? Calliope sent to locates. One east. One west. One south. She sounded surprisingly poignant. I've been wondering why you've suddenly changed lately when you used to indulge me so much. Last night's suicide where you rushed to see me was a design between the two of us. So if I say now that I'm really going to kill myself, will you still come? This is where Vanessa and I are. Both 30 minutes drive from you. If I don't see you in 30 minutes, I'm going to jump off the mountain. Or if you don't get there, they're going to kill Vanessa. Andre, take your pick. With that, Calliope hangs up. And I'm so anxious I can't wait to pull her out of the phone. Gritting my teeth, I stopped hesitating and jerked the wheel, going in one of the directions. And then sent the other location to the police. This location on Green Cave Hill. Someone's trying to kill themselves. It's an abandoned lighthouse by the sea. I was sweating by the time I struggled to climb to the very top. I squeezed the handle of my knife tightly and shouted anxiously, Vanessa, I'm coming to save. To my surprise, there were no strong men with knives as I expected. There were only Vanessa and Calliope. Seeing me coming, Calliope looked like she expected it and smiled desperately. I knew you would pick her. Don't worry. I didn't arrange any killing at all. I just wanted to try one last time and kill myself in the process. Calliope stood up, patted the dust from her skirt, and brushed past me. She said in a volume that only she and I could hear. Andre. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. How do you make a woman fall in love with a man? Let another man seduce her, and then hurt her badly. When she realizes that you're the best man in the whole world, she'll move on. This is the trap Calliope set for Vanessa. After being hurt so badly, Calliope finally realized how good I was and fell in love with me. Maybe this love came earlier than she noticed. But no matter what, it was too late. She smiled bitterly. I wish you happiness in the future. Andre. Goodbye. Vanessa and I were the only ones left in the factory. And she was calm throughout. She kept her hands behind her back and smiled as I walked up to her panting and checking her for injuries with a nervous face. Halfway through, she said, Andre, you're done. You're in love with me. Seeing her this chesty look I get angry. Yes. I am in love with you. No sooner had I finished speaking than I was swooped up in her arms. The person in my arms is extraordinarily small. I hold her tightly, and my heart is surprisingly gradually open to happiness and fulfillment. Diego for the crime of tying a beam, and attempted murder. I heard that in prison he also bravado, fighting with people everywhere, and was eventually beaten to death by a group Calliope. As she said, completely disappeared from my life. She still insisted on the private detective agency. Seeking Mal that name. She has not changed. Every day, in addition to receiving commissions, is sitting dumbly at the entrance of the alley, over and over again to rub the sign of the search for Mal. Polished so bright. But she can't wait for someone anymore. As for me, I'm getting married to Vanessa. The night of the wedding, I kissed her again and again and again. I asked her, now that I've fulfilled your commission, haven't I? What's your big secret? Vanessa laughed and looked suddenly serious. My shocking secret is that you were set back by me. Starting from Diego's commission. All of this is my design. Vanessa has someone in her heart. But that person likes someone else. And she knows deep down that that girl is not a bad person. She's just a bit blind, and will come to her senses sooner or later. She was afraid of that girl would turn back. And she knows that that girl has a favorite white moon too. So she began to plan. First, she tries to convince her family to marry her and Diego. And then she'd be hot and cold with Diego, throwing out hints of cheating and purposely messing with his mind. Diego then goes to Calliope and commissions a detective agency to investigate her. That would give her a chance to make contact with me. It also allows me to see how much Calliope likes Diego. And subsequently make me dead to Calliope. That's not all. After she succeeded in getting me to break up with Calliope, she intentionally treats me like I'm not as good as I used to be. That way I would care more and more about what she thought. And with that, I would care more and more about her as a person. Vanessa smiled softly at me. But under her eyes was a panic that she couldn't hide. See? That's how mean I am. Not at all as innocent as Calliope. But we're already married. You want to regret it now. But it's too late. What she didn't finish was drowned in my kiss. How could I regret it? This step-by-step plan of Vanessa's seemed so tightly woven together. But it was actually so shaky. 1 chance in 100. Diego would go to the detective agency. 1 chance in 1,000. I'll make contact with her. 1 chance in 1,000,000. I would break up with Calliope. It's a big gamble. If she lost, Vanessa would lose her whole life. But she's still willing to go to the gambling table for me without hesitation. Honey, thank you. I suddenly hated the old me who wanted to quit the marriage. But luckily, I still have her by my side.